So hi, Taylor.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you in the studio and so grateful for you to trust me with all of my questions and with your story and with anything else that you are going to share with us today. And for everyone who is listening or watching, Taylor and I, we should start maybe with how we know each other.
It's a good story.
Taylor and I met, God, has it been a year and a half? It's been longer than it's been
It'll
2 years.
be 2 years in the spring.
Okay, so you had just broken your leg, knee surgery.
Yes, knee surgery.
Okay.
I had just started physical therapy after my torn meniscus repair. Yes.
And I was having a class, a chakra class, that also had tea ceremony that was integrated with it. And I was teaching about the individual chakras. And you came to the very last one, which was the crown chakra. And you showed up and you were the only person in the class. And you and I just immediately hit it off. And
well, even funny, actually, this.
Are you going to bring it up?
It came up on my, I don't know if I should have gotten it ready, but it was on my memories of, I took the picture of the poster in the bathroom of that tea house.
Oh, did you?
And I was like, I want to follow this girl and I want to like go to some of these classes. And so I took a picture of it and it came up on my memories the other day and I meant to send it to you. And I forgot.
You should, because I don't have that picture.
And that's how it started, because I followed you on Instagram.
Okay.
And then you followed me right back and I was like, whoa.
Hey,
what's going on?
She must not be avoidant. She's definitely anxious attachment style.
And then, yeah, you like messaged me. And then I was like, I just saw your poster at the tea house and I would love to like attend one of your classes. So we started talking that way. And then I came the next week.
I was way friendlier back then, apparently, on social media than I am right now. I have been so not
like, wow,
on my account.
She's after it. She's on it.
I was on it. Well, I was also really... I was in a different place in my life at that time, which I think we're going to talk about. Yeah. A lot has changed for both of us. We consider ourselves, am I allowed to say our...
You are.
Okay.
DDs. Or no,
yeah.
DTs. Not DDs. I don't know why I say DDs.
Not our bra size, but definitely the fact that we are divorced twins. So unbeknownst to either of us, we first kind of didn't know each other. So we met up subsequently, maybe a couple of weeks later, and had tea together. Or you had coffee. I know you probably had coffee. Oh, maybe you had chai. Anyways, we had tea together in Solitude here in Portland, and then we got to know each other a little bit more, and we started talking about our husbands and our relationships. And then I kind of, maybe because it was summer and you guys traveled a lot, we talked about camping possibly, but eventually we went to an event that we both refer to as a picnic up in the gorge in Portland. Well, I guess that's not considered Portland. Outside of Portland.
Yeah.
We went to this picnic up a beautiful, actually a very beautiful location. And we refer to that time together because unbeknownst to either of us, we were both thinking about leaving our husbands very quickly thereafter, but we hadn't talked to each other about it at all because we didn't know each other to that level. I don't feel like, did we?
I don't think so.
Oh, when was
Ruby Spa was...
Okay, that was after
that.
Okay,
that's
it was
when
right
it all
after.
came out.
That's when it all came out. Okay, so yeah, so then we had plans to go to a concert, right? Is that how it was?
I think so.
We didn't end up going because we had filed for divorce, so we had to cancel that. But why were we at Ruby Spa?
We just did a whole day there.
Okay, just for funsies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's when we found out that both of us had filed for divorce and that we had filed for divorce within
we didn't
a couple
know.
of days together?
We didn't know because that was in September.
Okay.
So Ruby, when we were at the spa.
So you remember better than I do.
When we were at the spa, it just came out that we all of a sudden, I think I started talking about how I was miserable in my marriage and had known for years that I probably it was going to unfold somehow.
Had you said anything to him yet?
We at that point weren't talking. So that's
when you were fighting. You were sleeping in the other room.
We weren't even fighting. We were not communicating at all.
You were not even talking to each other.
So I went to that wedding in July, and when I was gone, it was the first time I was away from him and my kids for the first time for that long ever. And it just really became clear to me when I was there away. Like, I didn't want to go home. I missed my kids. I wanted to go back to them. But, and so then I came back and I found out that he had relapsed. And so then that's why I was like, this is my sign. This is my sign and this is it. I can't do it anymore. So then we met in August and I was telling you all of that.
Okay.
And then you were like, okay, yeah. Now we can talk about it.
Okay.
So then it was a month later and I texted you and had said, I asked for a divorce and you said, me too. And it was the same weekend.
Okay, so
That was in September.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So we both asked for we both separated from our husbands within the same couple of days.
Yeah.
And then I feel like we also filed within a couple of days of each other without
Yeah.
And then we also our hearings started to line up until my attorney got breast cancer. We were kind of neck and neck there for a while.
Yep.
And now we're going to have mediation at the same time.
Almost the same day? Is that what you said?
It's maybe on Friday.
Oh my gosh. That would be so wild.
And then
a year and a half later.
I don't think that we're actually going to, I don't think we're going to agree, but I think we have to try.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be very frustrating
Mm-hmm.
because he just said that he was going to give me 50-50 and his attorney jumped up out of his seat and said that they would prepare an offer during lunch. And my attorney said, okay, great. Sounds wonderful. Why don't we break for lunch? So we broke for lunch and then he gave me the offer and it wasn't anything close to 50-50. So it was exactly what he offered me a year ago.
Oh my gosh.
Almost a year and a half ago. So we hadn't really gotten anywhere and he didn't really mean 50-50 when he was initially exclaiming that he was ready to settle. So we're probably going to trial. Hopefully I'm divorced in the next 2 years. 2 months. If I have to wait 2 years, I will die. No, 2 months, hopefully.
Yeah, same. I know.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that it's been going on this long.
It is. Okay, so it's like, to me at least, it's like parenthood. Like, whoever is a parent, you've got to know that people are trying to give you advice about how sleep deprived you're going to be or how frustrating it's going to be that you're not going to get a babysitter that one time or whatever obstacles that they've faced that they just want to give you free advice about while you're pregnant. I'm sure you got some, right? So, I mean, divorce, same way. I don't know if I'd known close people that had gotten a divorce before. Maybe I had. I'd known some people that had been through divorce. I take that back. But the point is that until you go through it yourself and how it applies to you, no different than parenthood, it's completely different. I mean, someone can tell you what difficult is, and then when you're in the midst of what that difficult looks like for you, no one could have told me that it would have rolled out like this, that there would have been some of the scenarios that came up, some of even the conversations that are sometimes so hard to believe and blow my mind to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how difficult and to what extent, right? No one can really predict for you. It just depends on who you chose in the relationship. And you and I chose some pretty difficult people to begin with. Yeah. So we've definitely been through a process that even my attorney says that she has 40 to 45 cases on average, and mine's the most difficult one at her firm or that they've ever seen.
Wow.
They don't really understand why it's this difficult.
Wow. That's insane.
But she's fighting for me, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I just don't understand why he wouldn't come to a settlement much earlier than this. Yeah, because normally people don't want to wait.
Yeah.
And they just want to have a conversation.
To represent you.
Me too. I mean, she wasn't my original choice, but she's doing a good job.
Good.
Yeah. So I'm almost there and you're almost there. And we've been neck and neck and we're just starting to get a taste of freedom. And also funny way to meet and then bond, right? I guess you could say a little bit of trauma bonding even.
Yeah. I
And
think so.
yeah. And then, also knowing how you were raised. There's some overlap too there for lessons, especially with our fathers. And so I feel like we always had some things in common, but it has been really interesting to watch both of our lives kind of unfold. And it's not like I'm like, trying to keep up with you, but it's just really interesting, the synchronicity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And I know that we've talked about this a lot too. It seems like when either I'm going through the real lows of the divorce.
Yes.
You're kind of coming out of it.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's another side. And you're kind of like my person in the clouds that's like, keep going, you got this. And then I'm always that for you too.
You're very grounding. I don't have a lot of earth in my chart at all, actually. I'm mostly water. So, and some air. So, you're very, very, I find you very settling for my nervous system.
Good.
Yeah, you're always I don't know, you just, you settle me down very easily. You always have the right thing to say. Yeah, you always have my back too. So
Ditto.
So that's how Taylor and I know each other. And so that's also some interesting, or a way to deep dive into what's going on with us personally. I do have some questions. I actually have a lot of questions.
Ooh.
So
Gotta have the whiskey.
let's get more personal with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yes.
That we start there? Okay. So where were you born, or where did you grow up?
I have never gone far. I was born and raised in Portland, Gresham area. Yeah, my whole life, basically.
Yeah.
Up until a few years ago.
Do you like Oregon?
I do.
What do you love about Oregon? Tell me.
It's interesting because what I love about Oregon now, I feel like it's not necessarily what my childhood was wrapped around, which is interesting. But what I love about it now is that it's so accessible to get to so many different places. And as I've gone into my adulthood, I've really developed a love for the outdoors and all that, all the things that Oregon has to offer. And it's like nothing ever really feels too far away. And I was not my family was not a camping family. We did not really travel. We only traveled for my volleyball tournaments. That's it. So it was a lot of just hotels if we did travel.
Who got you into camping?
I think it was my ex. I think it was when, I don't think I really had gone camping until we started dating. And it wasn't even right away either. I remember when we got married, we got backpacking gear for our wedding gift. And that kind of started our backpacking, exploring, camping, all that stuff. And then we eventually just kept going and going, and then we got into fishing, and then we ended up getting the trailer, and so then we were gone every weekend. Yeah. So really it wasn't until after I was married that became a love, a lifestyle. Mine.
And you still do it.
Yeah, not as much as I would like, but I still I yearn for it, to be out.
We should plan a trip.
We should
this summer.
We definitely should.
Okay, so do you like Oregon? Do you like the weather here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we always bitch and complain about it.
It's on the weather.
Yeah. But I don't know. I honestly, there's days where I'm kind of blown away that I've never lived anywhere else, because I always think that's such a fascinating thing when someone lives in the same place for their entire life. That is so bizarre to think about. But I've never had a reason to leave. And, I have to say I do I wish it was maybe a little less rainy, but I do love
the
heat.
rain is intense.
Yeah.
For anyone even considering
Yes.
living here.
Yeah.
The rain is consistently and constant.
Yeah. And we have this joke here, about like the fourth spring or whatever, the fourth winter.
Yeah. It's like it just keeps going.
Yeah. I mean, it just snowed last week. Like,
yeah. And
my kid had snow days last week. Like, it's just ridiculous.
And you're like, it's March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, I like the heat, but I also like that I can go away to get the heat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I wouldn't necessarily want to live in a place where I would want to go there for a vacation, I like keeping the vacation spots as vacation spots so you can like enjoy them more or look forward to them more.
I think my ideal is either vacationing more during this season or else having a different location to go to for a good chunk of time and then coming back here.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, I'm almost 10 years in and I'm like, oh, I'm starting to understand how long the winters are here. Yeah. And, I think that I was just so... I was in a different place when I first moved here, and I was charmed by... I don't know, you grew up here, so like Portland, I don't know, just seems like in the 80s and the 90s was like so family centered and everything. There was so many things to do, and it was small community, and it wasn't necessarily what it has grown to be with all of us Californians moving up and increasing the population. And then in most recent years with all of the essentially kind of a war zone that we have going on downtown. So it's changed a lot, right? But like I have this dreamy fantasy of what it would have been if I had grown up here somehow, and like how cool that would have been and how that might have changed my life. But where was I going with that? Definitely the winters, I think I just kind of blew through in the first couple of years because I was so charmed by the fact that I finally got to live here and so pleased by the fact that I'd finally created this in my life. Yeah. Yeah. Because it took me, 8-9 years to convince my family to get up here. So now the winters are starting to...
Yeah. I think too, like after having kids, the winters just feel even longer, like when you're just stuck inside and you're just like, you just want so badly to just send them out.
I want to exercise too. Like I miss in the winter, it's really, I'm not saying I don't exercise, but it's really hard. I love running in the forest. Yeah. And I miss that. And I have to be really dedicated here to how cold it is and having I have the right equipment, but I'm not motivated to leave the house. And so what that does is it changes the way that I treat my body or the fitness that I end up doing during the winter, which is fine. I think it's good to keep changing it around, right? Boop, boop. but also, right, I don't get to do the things that I really love to do. Yes. For a very long period of time. Yes. Because it's not as fun to run in the rain.
Yes. Running has been something that I have really leaned on very, very hard during the summers. And even like I would say, I try and go as long as I can through October, maybe November a little bit. But it's just such a difference when you come home from work. And now also the difference in my life is working a full-time job that I didn't have 2 years ago.
Yes, your life's changed.
Yeah. So just like coming home from work and it's pitch black and you're just like basically getting ready for bed is like, man, you just don't have it. You don't feel like, it doesn't really feel like the stress cycle ever really like completes, or like that you don't have the opportunity to really wind down or to like decompress, at least in the way that I would like to, which usually is like going outside, running, like going for a walk, going to the park with the kids. I don't know, anything, honestly.
Not
reading a book
TV.
outside, like anything outside. And so like when you just come home to dark and you wake up to dark, and it's such an awful cycle. And I don't know if it's because of the divorce, but I've really felt it this year.
Have you?
This winter has been. And also we live with my parents.
Yeah.
There's a few factors that are probably.
Yeah. I mean, if I lived with my parents right now, I probably, we'd be having a very different conversation. I don't know if I would be sane. You're handling it really well.
Some days, I have to say, I never, if you would have told me,
die.
If you would have if you would have told me 2 years ago that we would have been living with them this long, I would have been very worried about my
your mental health.
But, I have to say, like, it's been great. And I think I've just continually been so grateful to be able to be there, because I have to be, like, there's no other way around it right now. Like, we have to be there. So obviously there's hard days, and there's, I was venting to you about a few things with things, living there before. But I think overall, we're not home a lot. We're there basically to sleep, it feels like, most days. And my mom and I, too, have, like, learned a lot about ourselves and each other.
You're probably healing a lot of wounding.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because you get to revisit it. And your mom is very invested in you. Mm-hmm. She is very invested in your success and very supportive throughout this divorce.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's parenting those kids part-time for me. Like, she's doing a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, you have a different relationship with her than I do with my mom. But it's still intense. Yeah, no, I admire you for being able to do whatever it takes to get through this. I think we're both doing that, but in very different ways.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We asked the first question. Name something you cannot live without.
Oh.
I love asking this.
I think exercising. Yeah, I think
being
exercising.
Outdoors, fly fishing.
Yeah, I mean,
standing in a river.
Unfortunately, I've learned to live without fly fishing more than I would like to in the last year. But I think about it all the time. But yeah, I think exercising. I think I've really realized that, like, that is my lifeline sometimes. Like, no matter what it is, like moving my body in some way, completing the stress cycle in some way. I've really, in the last couple of years, I've really developed a healthier than what has been, like, healthier than history has, shown itself with me. A very healthy relationship with exercise and fitness and what it does for me mentally, emotionally, physically, all the things. So I really lean hard on that sometimes, and I have really learned to prioritize that.
Do you think it's because you love yourself more?
I think so, yeah. I think when I started to, a couple, I don't know, 2 years ago, maybe even sooner than that, when I finally started to realize that I have to create my own happiness and I have to do whatever it takes to make sure that I am thriving apart from anyone else. It's about the same time that, like, I started to really focus on the things that make me happy and make me feel good. And that was one of them. And I've always been an athlete. I've always exercised. I've never, like, but I've just really, like, paid attention, I think, more to what actually makes me feel better and what doesn't make me feel good, and, like, really try to pay attention to those things. And
like, it's even clearer as you get older.
Yeah.
For sure. Every year I get better at that.
Yeah.
I'm still figuring it out. Tell me something unique or interesting about you that only those close to you would know.
Unique or interesting? I feel like I'm so bad at answering these questions.
Huh?
I feel like I'm bad at answering these types of questions. I'm like, I'm kind of a boring person. Like, what?
No, it's not like a dare. But...
No, I know, but I feel the pressure of.
Okay. Well, I could tell you something unique or interesting about you.
Okay.
You play music and you sing.
I guess that's kind of a secret. Like, not a lot of people know that.
No, you hardly share with the world. Jesus Christ.
That's actually funny that you say that, because What happened the other day at work? Oh, one of my coaches just recently followed me on Instagram, and she must have been scrolling or something.
and
Oh, no. This is what it was.
I went down and saw you singing.
I reposted a memory of a song that I had posted on Instagram like a long, long time ago. And she saw that and she was like, I've only known you for a year and a half, but like I had no idea. And I was like, no, I don't think anyone at my work knows that at all. And once in a while it will get brought up that like I used to play music, or I used to be like in a band, or I used to play for the church or whatever. But it's such a weird thing to bring up because it was so connected to my former relationship and like that whole family that
you're kind of shedding some things, right?
Yeah. And so I like fly fishing. That's been something that I have always thought about, and always, I'll mess around with the guitar in my room and stuff, but it's something that I have been trying to make my own, and have it can be separate. Like it doesn't need to be something that constantly reminds me of my former life or whatever. Or maybe it does, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing, but like, I think fly fishing that's why I dove into that. I've been trying to be very intentional about making that my own, and knowing that I can still continue that after divorce and after that relationship, even though that was like the one thing that we honestly I thought that was like might save us. At one point I was like, this might be the thing that saves us, but it doesn't work like that.
No,
so anyways, all that to say, like music, I still love it. I mean, I'm listening to music 97% of my day probably, like and I'm always thinking about, when I can get my piano back, and when I can, have more space to have more instruments. But I think that I feel like I've come to a place with that where I'm just being patient with it, because I know one day I'll be able to tap back into that if I want to.
Mm-hmm.
But circumstances are a little different, and it's just not as like accessible right now, I guess.
I think also when you begin to heal different aspects of the relationship, because let's admit it, as much as I'd like to say I don't need to grieve anymore, because I really don't want to anymore, I'm sure it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as you continue to shed or unwrap the story that comes along with different aspects, right? I used to hike all of the time with my ex-husband, and I'm not hiking. It was like something that I really was into.
Yeah.
And finding other people to do it with, and creating new memories and new neural pathways around your experience of that is what you're referring to, right? With fly fishing, like just going out on the river by yourself. I know how much you love doing that. And if I was a better fisher, I would go with you. I don't know if you really want me there.
I'll take anyone. I love teaching too, so.
I've never fished that way, but it would be.
A lot of people haven't. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it would be interesting to do with you and to camp with you, because I love backpack hiking and camping too. Yeah. So
let's do it.
Yeah, we should. You said something really interesting, and now I forgot. But maybe it'll come back. So then you led into, what are you naturally gifted in? Would you say guitar? Piano?
No. It's interesting. I feel like I have to work really hard at music. Like, I don't think I'm naturally gifted at music.
You don't?
I don't, no. I think it was something that I learned later in my life. And I almost forced myself to be good at it, or at least, like, decent at it, to the point where I could, like, carry a tune.
Okay.
I felt like I was always trying to keep up with
everyone around
me. Yeah.
Okay.
And as a result, I worked so hard at it. And I really have always loved it and have always enjoyed that being like an outlet for me. But it's not a natural gift of mine.
So what is? Design?
I would say like creativity. Yeah. I think writing, like my mom just pulled out a huge box of all my old like papers and like stories I've written, and I was reading some of my stuff, and I was like, I was a pretty good little writer in third grade. Like, I don't know, I submitted stories to do you remember Chicken Soup for the Soul, those books?
Yes.
Like I submitted stories to those. Like I really liked writing. I've always felt like I think communication has always been like a strong suit of mine. So whether that's, writing or designing or actually talking or whatever, I think that's probably something. And like, interestingly enough, like having a real quote unquote full-time job, like for the first time in my life, it has really shown me.
Why is it real in air quotes?
I don't mean real. I mean like a full-time job. Like
you've never had a full-time job?
No.
Ever in your entire life?
No.
How did you?
I only did design as the kids were like, I did design at home part-time.
What about before you knew your ex?
I had my first job in high school. I worked at a coffee shop. And actually that could have been close to full-time, but not on purpose. That was just because that boss, she worked us way too much and we didn't really want it. But I was still in school. I was playing volleyball. Like it was still a part-time job. And then right after high school, I was playing volleyball still in college. So I was still working there, and so I wasn't, whatever. And then I moved out of my mom's house, and I did have like 3 jobs at that time, but I was also going to Portland. I was going to school, and so all my jobs were very part-time, like, they're very like odd-end jobs. And then then Tyson and I got married.
That's unbelievable to me.
Yeah. And then after we were married, I still juggled like the 2 to 3 jobs. Like I coached in the fall. I worked, retail. I worked at a restaurant, like random things. Basically whatever I could do to kind of bring in some income, but also still go to school. Because I didn't graduate college until 2016 because I had Holden in there somewhere. And so I think it was kind of split up. But yeah, and then after having kids, I really leaned into my graphic design and tried to just do that so I could eliminate the other odd-end jobs, and luckily was able to bring in, quite a bit of income each month to be able to just focus on that when I wasn't being mom or doing school. But yeah, I've never worked for anyone else like full-time like I am now.
So crazy.
So anyways, I think being in an environment where you have so many coworkers and departments and committees and structure and formality, I've learned so much about myself and my strengths and weaknesses, and from it in that lens, and then actually hearing the feedback from like my managers and supervisors, like during my annual reviews, and like, just seeing how good I am at my actual job and seeing how I've grown, my department. And anyways, all that to say, I feel like communication has been it's been really clear to me that like that's a strong suit of mine that I need to remember more and tap into that in different ways, I think, too.
Did you ever write music, like songs?
Yeah, I dabbled in that a little bit. And that did not come natural to me. That was really hard. I feel like I'm really good lyrically. Like
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. I feel like I could I could write out words, a poem or whatever, and somehow maybe turn that into music, but that was always really hard for me to actually translate that to music. So.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew about
Cool.
the design. What was it like to grow up in your family? Tell me about it.
For the most part, I think I had a great childhood. I feel lucky that I had the childhood that I did. Definitely there's always hindsight of like, oh man, like I wish I could go back and tell myself that as a child. I never knew my dad. He passed away when I was 2, and it had always been like this big secret about like who he was, and everyone was kind of like just always tongue-in-cheek about him around me. And I always just kind of, I was so young that like I didn't think about it too much. And I always was told that he just got sick. And obviously, like, as you get older, you're like, okay, but, like, what's that mean? Like, what do you mean that he got sick? And it actually wasn't until I was 12 that I found out that he committed suicide when I was 2. And as I got older, I learned more and more every year. It was like my mom finally felt like, okay, now that that's out there, I think she finally felt like as I got older, she could share more and more about how it actually was and who he was. And it was a little bit heartbreaking because I think as a kid, I fantasized about who he had been or who he was. And, you know, you think about your dad and you just obviously want him to be your hero. And you know, create this version of who he was in your head, even though you never knew him. And, you know, I remember as a kid, I'm also an only child. So that also plays an interesting factor into my childhood. But I remember being so drawn to my friends' families and like always wanting to be in their space and always wanting to be around their families. And I was always so drawn to like my friends' parents. Like I remember always just being like so attracted to like this idea of a full family. And so, yeah, I remember I remember one of the things my mom used to always say to me was like, you know, your friends can come over to our house too. And I knew I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Like I remember thinking like, no, I don't want to because I want to go over there. Like I want to be a part of that. But yeah, it's interesting to think like how I gravitated toward things as a kid because I wanted it so bad. But yeah, and so as I got older, my mom like shared more and more with me about who he was, and it was kind of devastating. It kind of, you know, turned out that he wasn't exactly the, you know, best or strongest husband or, you know, person, you know, out there. But yeah, they weren't even together when he passed away, and yeah, there were some issues there. So, and I have to say, like, also going through what I've gone through with my ex, it has helped knowing what my mom's story was with him and what she went through in her marriage and after that as a single mom. I think that has really brought us closer. So I'm really glad to know the full story. It's just interesting how it, you know, played out over time, you know, through my teenage years. And yeah, and then, you know, I was only child. My mom was really great about making sure that I tried everything. So I tried almost every sport, activity, whatever you can think of. Was a really like smart kid, so I was doing, you know, really well in school and really loved like being at school. Like I've always been social, and I think sports always helped with that too, like just knowing lots of different people and kids. And then my mom met someone when I was 8. And
was she mostly single?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she dated a guy like when I was really young. That was around a little more, like at least enough for me to remember him. But it was kind of like wasn't super long term, I don't think. And I always knew that there was like an issue. Like even my like child hunch, my whatever. I knew like I had I knew it wasn't probably going to be like a thing that would last. So he was kind of like a blimp. But when I was 8, my mom met someone and he ended up being in the picture until I was 16. They never got married, but he lived with us. They owned a house together. They owned vehicles together. They might as well have been married, but I'm glad that they weren't because there was a lot of issues there too. And he was he was a good guy at first. You know, I was so happy to have a father figure in my life. And I really, again, like really gravitated toward him. And like, I think I was really like
craving it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was super excited to have that in our family. And then over time, as I got older and as I just saw more things, I picked up on things and I just started having bad experiences with him personally. And then it became really clear that like it was very toxic. And then, yeah, he left when I was 16 finally. And again, I found out more and more things about even that relationship as I got older. But yeah, I've kind of had this like dark cloud of relationships over my childhood. Like it was never super well modeled to me. Yeah. I have a really small family too, so there's not like a lot to go off of. And yeah. So I've always been really, like, I've always craved having my own family.
Me too.
So that I could do it myself and like try to make it right. And here we are.
Yep, and here we are. I'll never forget a photographer that I used to work with when I was modeling in my 30s. He came into our house in San Francisco, and he was standing at the top of the stairs, and it was triple level condo. And so at the top of the stairs that he was at, he would go down to a different level, and that's kind of where our daughter was, with a bonus room. Mm-hmm. And at the top of it, I had this, I still have it somewhere, but I had this frame, and it had 3, holders for pictures. Mm-hmm. And then underneath it, it had like family. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, it like had a picture of the 3 of us and maybe in the center, and then like our daughter and my ex-husband and me and our daughter. Mm-hmm. And he looked at that, and he looked at me, and he goes, "You're really trying to create a family here, aren't you, out of what you have?" And I was like, wow. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's the only thing I've ever really truly wanted, mm-hmm. is a family of my own. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I totally get that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was, it was, we were having problems even back then. Yeah. And he knew all about it, and he was kind of calling me out on it. Wow. Because he's like, "You don't really have a family. I mean, it looks like it in pictures, but you guys aren't all on the same boat." Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So back to you. What people have come into your life to teach you how to love?
You said something earlier that you had said, like, you weren't sure if you knew of people who were going through divorce when you were started going through it. And I would say the same. Like, I feel like I didn't know. Like, if you had to ask me at the time, like, I don't think I could have told you. I mean, obviously there would be people that I would have known, but it wasn't super clear or apparent or like obvious. And then as soon as I started going through it, holy cow, like, everyone that I talked to, it felt like everyone that I talked to had this story about divorce. And I think especially when I started my job, like, all these people that I started talking to, somehow divorce got brought up, and like, it was just, anyways. So I've really been lucky to be in a workplace where I feel like I have coworkers that are friends now that really have just, they care. And like, I'm so thankful that I can like kind of cross over my personal life with my work life, and it doesn't feel like this, it has to be like separate. And I think that's what I really needed, was like a new community, because I lost all of my community.
You did.
In my divorce. And I was even, and I'll get to, another person that has come into my life that for good. But I was thinking about this with him the other day. And maybe I didn't actually say this to him, but I remember we go out and do a lot of fun things together, and anyway.
So to clarify, for whoever's listening or watching, you're in a new relationship.
I am
That's what you're alluding to.
And I will get.
You left like an entire like community of like church and yeah. So it's a very different life now.
Yeah,
because you left the church with your ex-husband, but you also
Yeah. So whenever I'm thinking, like, my partner now will ask, like, well, who should we invite to this? And like, I'll rack my brain and be like, man, I really don't have a lot of friends to ask. Like, it's interesting. Like, I will think about how different that is now, where like, 3 years ago, I could think of 10 couples or 10, like off the back of my hand, like I could, think of a ton of people. And now it's like, oh yeah, that's like not really, that's
not a thing anymore.
Yeah. So, I'm learning, and I'm like, obviously, aside from that, like just in a different stage of my life where being working full time, like I was a stay-at-home mom that made my own schedule back in the day. So I could hang out with anyone and whoever I wanted at any time. That's obviously not the case anymore. And I do still have very good friends that I see once in a while, but they live, you know, in the old part of town that I used to live in, and it's not convenient at all. Anyways, so I think I've been really conscious about like what my community will look like going forward. And I think, you know, obviously you were the start of that too. Like you coming into my life was, I mean, we've already talked about how crazy and divine it was and has been. But I think that, you know, the universe does align you in a way where it just kind of falls into your lap sometimes. And sometimes you see it at first and sometimes you don't. But yeah. And then I've dated a little bit after, you know, I've explored that. And I have to say, like, even though I've dated people since being separated and it hasn't worked out, you know, with certain people, like, I think everything still was for a reason. And
you learned a lot.
Yeah.
You learned a lot about yourself.
I did, yeah. And there was someone that I dated pretty soon after the separation happened, and we had been longtime friends. And anyways, he had been pining for you for half of your life. And yeah. It started off as like a very you know,
fairy tale.
Yeah, and I confided in him a lot, and he really did. I have to say, like, it was really hard at times, like going through it turned into a serious relationship. And I have to say it was hard going through that so soon after being separated. But I really do think that, like, if it weren't for that relationship, I wouldn't have seen what I deserved or like what was out there, the possibilities that were out there of like what I could find if I made the jump, you know, believed that like I could create a better life for myself, that I'm not just stuck. I'm still young, and like there's plenty of time. And
oh my God, you are so young. Remind me how old you are.
I was never really worried about that. I'll be 32 next month.
Yeah, girl, you have so much time. You could like have a whole other family.
Man, that's bizarre.
Isn't that weird to think? But you really could. I mean, like you could have an entirely new next 20 years that looks nothing like the last 20 years.
That's very true.
And you can make it look however you want it to look. I certainly did. You know? So, like, keep going. You have so much time. That's what's so fun. I mean, I feel like you're just starting to step into who you are. And that this divorce is really actualized who you want to become and set you on a trajectory of knowing yourself deeper, knowing what you need, communicating differently, you know, some really huge growth opportunities for emotional vulnerability. Oh gosh. Yeah, you're doing so well. I feel like, I love our friendship, but I love watching, what you've learned about yourself. I think both of us through this divorce process, like, got broken open. Yeah. And it's not to say that, like, I haven't been broken open before, but I've learned stuff about myself in the divorce that, I think you probably attest to, right? That I just didn't have access to. And maybe we can, you know, touch on that a little bit, in the sense that when you're in a relationship, I was in one for 22 years with this person. And, you know, obviously you were in it for a really long time too. I know that. Not quite as long, but still long enough that you get into this pattern with each other. And you're no longer, like, at a place in the relationship where I won't say it's not like you're still trying, because you and I, we're trying pretty hard to keep it together, but it's like you just don't have access to the same information, because you're not trying to, maybe this is going to come off wrong, but impress each other or work as hard as maybe you did in the first couple of years. Yeah. And I mean, everyone gets lazy, right, as time goes on and you settle. And I won't say it's lazy. Maybe a better way of describing it is that everyone settles into
like
a rhythm or
yeah.
a routine.
Yeah.
And even your trauma, you know, kind of has this story or this pattern that you're consistently kind of rotating or cycling through. And when you meet new people, when you date, you get to shift the pattern and it breaks open parts of you that you're like, fuck yeah, I used to be pretty independent and like did all these crazy things 22 years ago. And it's not like gave them up so much as that I created a life with somebody. I married up with their interests too. And in doing so, we created an us, right? And that was the hiking and the camping and the, you know, all of those memories that are attached to that. And so, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but you got me started for sure.
Yeah, I think there's always like,
we were talking about who came into your life to teach you to love. Tell us about who has come into your life to teach you to love.
Yeah. How much time do we have?
Aww.
Yeah. I've been dating Jake now for 9 months. And
I cannot believe it has gone by so fast.
And it's so funny because we both love to like tell this story to anyone that will listen. But I met him originally on a dating app, on Hinge, and
you met him on Hinge.
I did, yeah. But I was not, it was a very...
Oh, that's right. And then you had like a mutual friend that reintroduced you off of line.
Yes.
Offline.
So I was a very bad dating app person because I was just getting into it, was just coming out of that.
You're the one who told me to get on that.
Yeah, sorry.
You're like, well, I think we had a conversation about whether or not it was worth it. Yes. I had heard about it.
And I have to say, like, I went on, you know, I did meet like a few different guys on that I went on dates with that I enjoyed meeting all of them. Some of them were just like a one time, like, okay, it was nice to meet you. Like, and then we never hung out again for whatever reason. But
that was your experience, huh?
It was and I promised myself that I would have a dating experience because I never dated in my adult life.
That's so crazy to me too.
I met my ex when we started dating when I was 18, 19, and then that's it. Like I never, like, that's it. And you can't count high school. Like, I mean, I wasn't even, yeah. And so I promised myself, you know, and I know all my friends that are like either still single or like that got married later. They're like, you don't want to like date. Like it's awful. I'm like, I know you think I'm crazy, but like I actually feel like I need to do this for myself. Like whether it's awful or not, I feel like it's a part of the process of finding out who you are, what you want, what you don't want. And I already have some of that just because of coming out of a marriage. But
it also kind of walks you through the process of rejection, right?
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to handle it, especially if you're not interested. And they're just a nice person.
Yeah.
But that gives you more information on what is good for you and what isn't. And those boundaries are so necessary, especially when in the past you would have had a particular type.
Yeah.
And you were looking for something different than that this time.
Yeah, I knew. I mean, it was pretty clear when I was on these apps. I was like, I felt really picky, but I was like, it's probably a good thing. It's probably like, okay, I'm sure it's probably normal that people are just coming out of a relationship.
I was very picky.
Yeah. And so I was like, man, I definitely have a type. Like, I was like figuring out that like who I was attracted to, like first impression, who I wasn't, and what things were like non-negotiables, like what things were total turnoffs, like what, but the dating app experience is so overwhelming. And I have to say, I don't know. I would imagine that it's, sorry, but like I would imagine that it's way more overwhelming for women.
It absolutely is. Are you kidding me? There are so many men on there.
I felt like it was a part-time job.
It is a part-time job because you get messaged so many times.
So many times. And then I get so overwhelmed with trying to keep track of all of them.
There's not a lot of women on them. That's why.
Yeah. And I am someone too that's like, whether I'm actually interested or not, I hate like keeping people waiting. Like, I want to be polite and like, you know.
Yeah.
And so I would always feel the pressure of like responding and like
getting back to people.
And then if you're on multiple apps, it's like, I can't even know. So I met Jake. We matched or whatever in, I don't know, and that would have been like late spring last year sometime. And I was just not like, we were kind of, you know, conversing, whatever, lightly talking about, I think actually I was just like thinking about it the other day. He reacted to one of my photos of me fishing or he made a comment to like on one of my prompts or whatever on Hinge about like the fact that it was because there's like prompts on Hinge. I don't know if you've ever seen it or if you
I had a profile.
So one of the things was what's something like that would surprise someone about you or whatever, and I said that I'm a fly fisherman because most people are like, what, like that's really, you like that? Anyway, so and he reacted to that. We started talking then, and we, you know, bantered a little back and forth. But I was traveling for volleyball at the time, and I was coming out of the other relationship that rocked me, and I was trying to figure out what the hell I was doing and like where to go from there. And so I just was kind of unavailable. Like I was trying, but I was like, I'm just not, you know. So we ended up like following each other on Instagram anyways because of knowing each other from there. So honestly, we mostly kept up on Instagram, and he would respond to my stories, and like he knew what I was doing. He was seeing what I was doing and stuff. And
he was watching. Yeah.
And then we always kind of like made, you know, he would say like, I really want to take you out or whatever. And we would be like, yeah. Like I want to, but like, I don't know when. And then he started doing golf trips and I was still traveling. And so anyways, it just kept not lining up. And then I kind of just like stopped trying on the apps for a while. I was like, I'm just going to take a break because like I cannot keep up and it's just adding too much pressure in my life right now. And so I went on my last volleyball trip in June, and I came back that weekend or something, or after that weekend, and it had been like a month or so or longer since I had been on any of those apps. So I like randomly, I think we were like, I don't know, we'd just gotten home, whatever. I was like, I was going to open those up and see what's going on. So I opened up Tinder, which I also had briefly had, which Tinder freaked me out. Like I couldn't do Tinder, but I opened it up to like just to see, and Jake popped up on there too, and I was like, oh, I was talking to this guy, like I know who this is. So, but on that profile, I saw who he worked for, and on Hinge, it didn't say who he worked for. So when I saw who he worked for, it's a really good friend of mine's. Her husband works for this company. It's actually like he's the VP of this company. So I was like, I wonder if Erica knows him.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Oh my God, that's the first time I sneezed 3 times in a podcast. Sorry for anyone who's listening.
And so anyways, I reached out to her. I took a screenshot of his profile and I was like, do you know this guy? And she was like, oh my gosh, you need to swipe right or whatever it is. Like,
because he's so amazing.
Yeah. She was like, her husband and her had talked about potentially like setting us up. Yeah. And she was like, we're waiting. I was kind of waiting to see if you were ready. I know you're going through a lot right now. So I was just waiting to see.
Cute.
But like, you should definitely reach out to him if you're interested. Like, he's great. And I literally like, that's all I needed. Like I opened up Instagram, went straight to,
direct message.
I don't think I had his phone number yet. No, I probably didn't. Or else I probably would have texted him, but messaged him on Instagram, was like, sorry I ghosted you. I know it's been a while. I'm done with volleyball. And also I just found out that like we have a huge mutual friend in common. And I told him and he was like, what?
You've been vouched for.
So then
maybe I'll trust you.
Yeah. So then he was like, well, when are we hanging out? And I was like, honestly, I just came back from a trip with my kids for a week. Like, I'm ready for some adult time, like, now. Like, what are you doing this week? Mm-hmm. And then we hung out that week. And then, like, we hung out, like, every weekend after that. So, yeah.
So, how would you compare this relationship with your ex-husband or your marriage?
I'm still learning. because it's still relatively new. So, we're still learning a lot about each other. But first off, like, it's so interesting being in a relationship with a more secure person.
Yeah.
Who is just more sure of themselves in a good way. And he's
knows
very,
what he wants.
Yeah, he's successful. He's driven. He's social. He enjoys doing things. Like, he's just like attentive, and I know it's relatively new. So like I always am like, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, well, it's still new. It's still kind of the honeymoon phase. Like,
I think you're out of the honeymoon phase. I think it lasts about 3 to 6 months. I don't think it's much longer.
We're definitely in a stage now where like we're hitting up against things that are challenging us way more.
This is considered like the power struggle.
Yes, yeah. So, but I will say that like it's been so interesting being with someone that is just really thoughtful and from the beginning, he's told me that like me having kids is not an issue at all for him, and he's really excited, and he actually asked to meet them way sooner than I was ready for it. And so I actually was like, not yet. Like, I kept pushing it back. And anyways, he's it just feels really good to be with someone that like truly wants to take care of you.
Yeah.
Like, in more ways than just one, but like yeah, and also, it's my social life has always been a huge part of my happiness, and my ex and I, like, we didn't have a social life really together. I mean, we did, but like not how I really, really wanted it. It was very custom to what he could handle and what was good for him, and as a result, like, I missed out on a lot of things that I really wanted to do, and that really would have like fueled me and would have been, I don't know,
for instance,
as simple as double dates, or going to birthday parties, or going on trips with other couples, or
because he just wasn't interested and wouldn't go.
Yeah,
and Jake will.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Jake is
You're definitely coming to my divorce party. Both of you are coming to my divorce party.
Jake is the party starter. Like,
apparently I need to learn some drinking games.
Yes.
I'm very excited.
He will be so excited to teach.
Tell him
games.
I'm already ready. I'm already ready.
Yeah, I've just taken him to random places with me where he knows zero people, and he just chatting, goes off by himself and is talking to people that he just met. Like, it's such a 180 from
where you came from.
Yeah. And I don't have to worry about constantly making sure that he's comfortable, and to the point where I'm not like, I'm
enjoying yourself.
I can't enjoy myself. Yeah.
You're so focused on somebody else.
Yes.
So I know about that.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So
attending to other people's needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. You and I were really good at that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's just not, I think he's helped me, learn a lot about myself, and shown me a lot of love in a way where he is not codependent on me. He doesn't really need anything from me. He's never made me feel like I am stuck or that I'm required to do anything for him. Because, and I think this is a result of him also, being single for longer than I have been, and learning also, he's also been divorced, and like,
I forgot he had been
divorced. But it's been a long time, so he's had longer.
How long has it been?
I think he got divorced in like 2017 or 2018.
Okay.
So, he's had a longer period of time of being single after marriage, after divorce, and I think he's just learned how to be alone and be single, and what that looks like. And so he's just...
It's interesting that we both picked people to teach us that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
because you and I didn't really know... Well, I mean, I've been told I don't know how to be alone, but I feel like I was even alone in my marriage. Mm-hmm. And you were too. Mm-hmm. But I have lived alone. You and I have lived different lives, but I have lived alone by myself.
Yeah.
And so... But I do think that we both chose people who have taught us to be happy
Yeah.
being alone.
That was a surprise for me, was learning that about myself, that I am not okay with being alone. Like I kind of convinced myself that I was going to be this like independent woman that would be single for a long time. And that I would date around and like
it's
figure
totally
out.
okay to admit that you are happy coupled. There's nothing wrong with that. And that couple can look however you want it to look. It doesn't mean that you guys have to move in together and like pledge your commitment to each other from now until the day you die. It just means like
he's had to
you like hanging out with someone occasionally and it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you he's had to slow me down. Like he
has. Look at you, Taylor.
I know. I just like, and I think I was just so anxious to like, I don't know if it was me just, wanting companionship like really bad. Also, we have an interesting situation where like, you know, I have kids, so like really we were limited to seeing each other on the weekends for the longest time. And now it's
like every couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There were definitely like, I don't know how we, like the fact that we made it through last summer was a huge indicator that like we worked well together, because we would go weeks without seeing each other. Yeah. And it was fun. I mean, after a while, it hurt more and more.
Very different.
But at first, it felt okay because I was also stepping into a new season at my job, and I was getting into a new routine of doing week on, week off with the kids. So, you know, it was – and then he, you know, he had so many trips planned for last summer. And so, I mean –
Do you feel like it's healthier?
I think it really did help us at first.
But do you think it's healthier? Do you think it's – I mean, I guess it depends on the person, but I don't know. I just feel like spending every single day with each other, it's a lot.
And I think knowing what I know now about myself, about how I am kind of – like I physically hurt when I don't get to see him.
I do too. And
I don't know that I think that's more of a recent, probably in the last, you know, 4 or 5 months since we've really turned like a serious corner. I think I was more okay with it last summer because there was just so much going on and I was so busy. But I think the space honestly was good for us, at least in that part of our relationship, just starting off, because I think it clarified that like we did want to be together. And
well, it takes effort.
Yeah. And like even if we would go 2 weeks.
Verb. Love is a verb.
Yeah.
It's not a noun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like if we would go 1 or 2 weeks without seeing each other, it clarified that like, oh yeah, I like really miss him like a lot. You know, and it wasn't long. It was a month or so into us even meeting that I decided that like I wanted to be exclusive. We both decided that, like, you know, and for me, I remember him asking me like, so like, are you going to be dating other people? It was probably like 3 weeks after we met. And I remember we sat down and he was like, so are you going to be dating other people still? Because he knew I was honest. Like I was honest that I was talking to other people and I had been. But it was pretty apparent that like he was kind of standout.
Well, he was pursuing you.
Yeah. And
softly, but he was pursuing you.
Yeah.
And he was checking you out way before you gave him permission to even go on a date.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he was definitely interested. It was you. Sorry.
Well, don't
mean to tease you about the avoidant attachment style, but it was you know, kind of saying, I don't know if I'm going to let you in, right? Because your heart had been wounded.
Yeah. And I have
recently and previously. And dude, the heartbreak of dating someone while in a divorce. Let's talk about that, right? Because you're already opening up your heart and grieving a relationship that even if you knew it was coming, even if you'd been preparing for it, even if you had grieved different parts of it, even if you'd let some parts of that relationship go or that person go already, I'll speak for myself, doesn't mean that grief doesn't come along in different waves throughout the divorce. And then you started dating somebody and there was, a brief period of time where you're trying to work on that and then get over that, in addition to going through a divorce with someone else.
I remember thinking all the time, I cannot believe I'm going through a breakup or this this grief
and a divorce
at the same time
doing to
with two different people. Like, what?
Why did it take on so much?
But also, like, holy, we are so strong, and like, how much can like people actually take? Like, I don't know. It's like pretty wild. Like what you're capable of going through. And
I think that has a lot to do with our trauma, to be honest.
Yeah. I know, we like kind of yearn for it a little bit.
I think we probably just have learned to endure a lot more than other people would endure.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone's as brave as you and I, and we just kind of, you and I were romantics. We just, we fell right in to being, to being in love. And there's nothing wrong with, I won't say that it was a distraction, but it was a good distraction. There were some times when my divorce was so difficult, and I'm so grateful to have been loved and carried through that.
Yeah.
So grateful
to
the person that was capable of doing that for me.
And that's like same. Like that's why even though, the previous relationship like didn't work out, I think it definitely got me through some really, really hard
difficult times.
And, we ultimately like weren't compatible in their ways that was needed. But like, I think too, I was really shown this whole other side of how I just felt so special at times. Like I felt so admired. I felt so pursued. And that was something I literally just had this conversation with Jake the other night about this. I have realized through my divorce and I knew this about myself even before because it was something that I constantly was so sad about in my marriage. I have learned that like I want to be pursued so bad and I want to be fought for so bad because I've never really experienced someone giving enough of a fuck to want to make it work.
Well, you didn't even have a dad that was around. So that makes complete sense that you'd be completing that picture for sure. Mm-hmm. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
We've gotten through like 6 questions, which are really interesting to hear. Let's see. Okay. What is one of your earliest memories of feeling love?
I don't really have like a specific memory or like an event.
Okay.
But my mom's mom, she passed away when I was 7 from breast cancer. And I was so close with her. And I just always felt like I don't know. I knew she was my grandma, but honestly, she felt like such a mother figure to me. And
more than your mom.
To the point where her name was Diana. So like her nickname was Dee Dee. And when I was really little, I called her Mama. And so then my mom.
What did you call your mom?
Probably Mom. I think I called them both Mom. I don't know.
Okay.
But to the point, I started calling her Mama. And so they came up with Mama Dee Dee. And that's still to this day what people referred to her as. Like everyone ended up in our family, everyone ended up calling her Mama Dee Dee.
Because of you.
Mm-hmm. And I don't have like a specific event, but whenever I think about my childhood and feeling loved.
Oh, you think of her?
I think of her. And my mom always asked me, do you remember her? And I'm like,
do I remember
her? Of course and now I get it because I think about like I have an 8-year-old. Like I think about like, that's really young. So like I understand like why she's like, do you have memories of her?
Yeah.
But I'm like, God, yeah, I remember like specific things like being in her house. I remember sitting with her and coloring with her. And I remember she was so good at coloring. Like I'm sure if I look at it now, I'm sure I'd just be like, oh yeah, that's okay. But like I remember I still remember it was a Looney Tunes coloring book and it was Tasmanian Devil. And I remember she would like darken all the outsides of all the shapes and then it was colored pencils and then she would fill it in like lightly. And I remember just thinking like, oh my God, you're so good at coloring. Like what? And yeah, there's just
cute.
like, and I just remember like, I don't know, it's just certain things about being in her house and just feeling like really at home with her. And my mom, you know, was a single mom and worked. And so I was with my grandma a lot and she lived right behind us. So like we were neighbors. And anyways, yeah, I just think of her.
Oh, that's really sweet. What makes you feel loved?
When people ask questions to me about myself.
When people are curious
Like when
about
people
you?
ask me questions. Yeah, I'm not a good question asker. I'm really bad at asking
Are you feeling
questions.
really loved right now?
I kind of am. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not good at asking
Am I
questions.
speaking your love language
Yeah.
right now? That's cute. That's really sweet.
I'm not a good communication starter. So like I'm not
That's interesting.
it's
that you
interesting
think that.
that
You think that.
oh, I think I think I stumble a lot over so like even like in my relationship with Jake now, like I feel like I struggle at asking him questions like just to get to know him deeper.
Ah.
It's not that I don't want to know. It's not that I don't want to ask questions. I literally freeze up and I cannot think of even anything to ask. Like I don't know. I don't know. That's why I really appreciate it. Like when I'm in a conversation with someone and they have a lot to ask me and like get the conversation going. Cause then then I'll get going and then it's fine. But
you
I
have no problem talking about yourself or your life or
Yeah.
you're very open.
Yeah, and I remember like even like random memories of like friends that I had in high school.
You just need to be won over. We just need to prove that we really, really, really like you.
I just remember like certain people like always having really good questions. I'm like, gosh, how do you think of these questions to ask? Like,
I do research and I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both.
So anyways, I just feel loved when like people truly want to know about me and if I let them in any way, like if I like share something with them, then like I feel really loved and like seen if they want to elaborate on that or want to know more. And it's not just like, oh, okay, thanks for sharing and that's it. Like it's like, oh, I want to know more about that with you or something, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm learning all kinds of new things about you.
Yeah.
What has been your biggest lesson in love?
That people aren't perfect.
Yeah.
You and I talk about this all the time. You're really good at reminding me of this.
Am I?
You are. Yeah.
That specifically?
Yeah, I feel like you've reminded me a lot of like people in my life that like mostly like people that I've dated since divorce, that they're not perfect. And
why are you really hard on them? I don't remember that. I pointed this out to you, really?
not in a way. No, I don't think you were pointing it out in a way where you're like, you need to back off, Taylor. Like, I think you were just
expectations
saying
are way too high.
like talking about the weaknesses and like that like I've learned that like I, as much as I love someone, like I can't, it's not fair to them if I put them on this pedestal of they're everything to me or they're perfect or whatever. It's interesting too because that's how I felt in the other relationship that I was in, where
you were on the pedestal?
I was on the pedestal and that I was constantly letting that person down
because you were on the pedestal?
Because I was on the perfect pedestal. So
and you
anytime
couldn't ever be imperfect.
And so and it was like to him, he was like, but you are perfect. And I'm like, that's not fair for you to say that to me because I'm not perfect.
And I make mistakes.
And I make mistakes. And when I make those mistakes, you're like super disappointed in me and you make me feel awful. And it's like, yeah. So anyways, I realized that I have done that also with people. And it's a huge letdown when you try to put someone in this light of being perfect and you know, whatever, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but like, you know, and then that person lets you down because they ultimately will.
Yeah, that's relating. Human. But that's relating. I mean, a good relationship, any relationship, friendship, romantic relationship, guy you're dating, Jake, that is relating. There's no way you're not going to piss each other off. We talked about this earlier, or disappoint each other. There's no way you don't. It is conditional love in some ways because there is conditions around the relationship, and you're not always going to meet the conditions because you have free will and you have your own agenda. So, like, what is the test of time for any relationship is really whether or not you can make a repair and amends, and if both people are committed to that. Because I'm going to misunderstand you when I first meet you. I think I even told you, and you were. You know, that for a bit I was like, I mean, you were so busy, but we didn't communicate about that. I was like, I mean, I don't know how much she likes me. I think I like her a lot. So like attachment styles even, and understanding each other when you first get to know somebody takes a little bit. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So, okay. Do you have any boundaries when it comes to love? Trick question.
Is it a trick question?
Well, I mean, you should have boundaries around love.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, that's why. I was like, shoot. I get into this, like, I get into this space where I have to answer it perfectly, and
No, you're fine.
Made me nervous.
We can be messy.
Of course there's boundaries.
Do you have any boundaries around...
Do I have any boundaries?
My nose is running now. I don't know what's going on with me.
It's kind of coming from a lens of what I've learned, I guess, from previous relationships, but I don't really know if this is what you mean by your question, but do you mean like...
No pressure. You can even not answer it.
No, I want to answer it, but I'm just trying to clarify what you mean. Do you mean boundaries with love? So do you mean like...
Do you have any boundaries when it comes to love? Like, are you boundless when it comes to love?
Like giving love or receiving love or...
Both. Yeah. However you see that. No. You're like...
I don't know. I think I love pretty easily.
I think you do too.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's why I was asking. That's why I said it's a trick question. Because I don't think you are.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've come to the terms where, like, if you love someone, you should tell them and you should let them know. And if you feel like you love someone, then like that's the truth. That's your truth.
And you should definitely share it. Yeah. Because time is of an essence. Yeah. Yeah. And we need to get on with enjoying it. Yeah. I'm with you. Okay. Have you ever become addicted to or obsessed with someone you love?
I think probably yes to everyone that I've loved in some way, shape, or form.
That's honest.
My ex, I think I was obsessed with the idea of, there was different periods of time, especially early on, when he was really struggling with different things, where I became obsessed with the idea of trying to fix him.
Yes.
Me too. And being the one that was going to change his mind and going to change him.
Trying to heal him.
Yep. I did. I was
trying to love him into better.
I read books. I researched. I made appointments for him. I
educated myself.
Yep. I did so much, and it was an obsession because I was so committed to making sure that it worked out. And
I also, don't you think, like, I know I'm interrupting you, but don't you think that there was a part of you, I feel like we're similar here. I mean, you are a Taurus, let's be honest. You're like one of the most loyal of all the signs. But like, don't you think there was a piece of you that really wanted to make sure that you gave it your all?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
definitely.
I wanted to make sure I had tried everything so that I couldn't look back and be like, you fucking loser. And you know what? Worked harder at it.
Aren't you glad? Because after 10 years, when I asked for a divorce, I had people on mostly from his family, saying,
You couldn't have done
Can't
anything
you
else.
try again? Can't you just try
One more
counseling
chance?
one more time? I'm like, do you know how many fucking counseling appointments I've been to? And also,
that all of you don't even know about.
Yes, and how
because
many
we were like trying to keep up a
Yes.
pretense of how we were doing much better than we actually were.
Mhm.
Yes.
I've tried all different kinds of alternative therapy also with him. And do you know how many counselors we've canceled because he was like, I'm done with this?
Well, you
or
just
had told me, you should just go by yourself because it seems like it's more for you at this point.
You grew apart and you also grew up. You grew up.
Yeah. Since being separated, my family has been really honest with me about just how they were really counting down till the moment that I was going to figure it out. And it was not long after I got married, like right after I got married. And my uncle he told me this in the last year or so, but he told me that after I got married, he was happy for me. Everyone loved my ex and like
Well, yeah, we wish him well, and he's a good person, and he's a great dad.
My uncle told,
maybe not so great as a husband.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
Maybe for someone else, but not for you.
Yeah.
And you guys were in very different places when you met.
Oh.
So were me and my ex.
Yep. Yes. Very different places. And when you get married so young too, like it's scary, like knowing that you're going to go through maybe becoming parents. You're going to go through this whole decade or decades of your life where obviously you're changing naturally. And we started dating when I was 18.
Yeah.
I had my first kid when I was 23.
That's so crazy.
Like there's so much. And then, you've touched on it, but like all the things that changed in our life, like leaving the church and like changing our whole, like removing that whole part of our identity of how that was the foundation of our identity of that.
And you walked away from it.
We walked away from it. And not only did we walk away from it, but we like disowned. Like it was very.
And it wasn't handled very well.
Yeah. So a lot happened. And a lot of that too, like kind of brought us together in weird ways at the same time. But ultimately, like we had just been changing so much and we just weren't connected enough, to it. And we also, I don't think we're committed enough to like who each other were becoming at the same time. So anyways, we got on a tangent there off of
That's all right.
Another question, but.
That's okay. You've covered a lot of this, so we were kind of getting into your old relationship, and so let's see. Okay, let's see if you understand or you can help us with this. How do we recognize deep down inside that our partner isn't good for us?
I think the moment that I realized that I was done, or that I absolutely was sure that like we were no longer good for each other, was when I really started thinking about life after that relationship. I started thinking about
what your future was like without him. Fascinating.
And even before that, I'm sure there were signs, I'm sure there were things, but that was the moment I was like, I should not be having these thoughts.
If I want to stay. Or if this is still good for me or healthy or right.
I remember just thinking,
fantasizing about a life without you.
I remember thinking, I don't think I've ever said this out loud, but I remember thinking like, I kind of just wish he would leave me. Like, but that would have never happened. But like, I kind of just wish that he would walk away, so that I didn't have to do it, because I knew it was ultimately going to have to come down to me walking away. And I was so scared. But yeah, I think, even before that, I think there's probably a lot of flags that came up with me, especially, I don't know, when you stop even wanting to share anything with them, communicating to them. You don't sleep in the same bed for 2 months. Yeah, I think, this is probably deeper, like that started sooner. I gave up on expecting him to meet any of my needs.
Uh-huh.
And I decided I'm going to have to create this for myself.
Yeah. When you start going, why bother?
Mm-hmm.
Why bother sharing this with you?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it really, our arguments always came down to the same thing over and over and over again. And it was like, okay, so that's that one thing that we keep getting hung up on. I'm going to have to let that go. And what does that mean? It means that I'm going to have to find my own happiness, which I value a lot anyway, no matter how happy you are in any relationship. But I'm going to have to really create my own happiness here and not expect him to meet any of my needs. And I really convinced myself that like that was okay and that like, yeah.
Let's sidestep here for a moment or put a pin in that. And I'll be vulnerable for a second and say that within the last 6 months, 4 months, I don't remember exactly when it was, but remember when you found that video that your son had taken of me?
Yes.
At the picnic, the infamous picnic.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I look like you have driven a truck over me energy-wise. Like I'm so wiped out because I think you and I had both come to a place where we were so committed to keeping the relationship going. I mean, we had overextended ourselves to the point where we were doing all of the work of the relationship with a partner who wasn't even really committed to us or committed to the relationship anymore. And when you step away from that, there is such a huge like influx of energy because of how much effort it took to keep it all together.
Yeah.
And I thought it, just like you, I thought it had it all under wraps.
Mm-hmm.
I had figured it out. I could survive like that for however long I needed to until the next thing, right? But
yeah,
I look at myself now and I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing?
Mm-hmm. I have those aha moments a lot too.
Yeah.
When I look back at memories or something and just think about
like how long I stayed.
Yeah, especially on Instagram where everything looks, it looks prettier than it is.
It's hard to know when to go.
Yeah.
It really, truly is hard to know.
Yeah. I just remember
no one can tell you what that is.
Yeah, I remember it was probably like that spring that I met you. It was really like that winter before was 2020. Obviously, that was a hard year in general.
Everyone.
But
everyone was forced indoors with the person that they couldn't run away from them anymore.
Yes, yeah. That December before of 2020 was the third December in a row that I had taken the kids and left to go to my parents right before Christmas. And it was always like a week long because it was always just like the cycle of when things hit the fan. And so that Christmas of 2020 was when I was like, it really hit me that like, I really think this is
January for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I didn't know.
The last vacation.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't think I could do this anymore.
Yep. And that was that December when I had gone to my mom's. That was her and I sat down and had a real conversation about logistically what it would look like.
Yeah.
And it was so scary to have that conversation.
Me too.
Because I had thought about it a lot in my head and I was processing it in my head by myself, but I was
still not ready.
Scared to say it out loud.
Me too.
So I let that go for the first time and that kind of made it a little more real. And then I kind of, tried to like, it was Christmas time. So you're trying to like make it, the best for the kids. And then it's a new year. So you think like, hey, maybe this is the year that it all turns around.
Then we'll figure it out finally.
So I really just tried to keep my head down like from January on. And it was a lot of just like going through the motions at that point.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to figure out like what it looked like after that. And then, then that summer is when I really was like, I need to do this.
Yeah.
And it was really scary. But once I verbalized it and I also told my best friend at the time, like I was telling her what was going on and I verbalized it to her that like, I really think that like, this is it. And it became more and more real. And I swear like from the moment that I firmly decided, which I think probably was early August. Like I was like, that's when I had the conversation with my mom, told her I was going to do it. And from that day on, almost every day, there was something weird or like crazy that happened that affirmed me.
Yes.
That I needed to keep going.
Yep.
And I look back at them often. I started saving all of these quotes and like reminders and stuff from Instagram.
And
yep. And I started getting weird number synchronicities of like
angel numbers.
Yes. Started paying attention to numbers a lot more. And I have so many screenshots of those types of things to like remind me. And I have a whole like category thing saved in my Instagram of like, it's called Truth. And I still go back through those and like read them as reminders. And they still, I mean, it still carries over. Like they still, you know, mean a lot. So I never had a day where I second guessed
or
leaving.
regretted it. Me neither.
And then when I actually asked for the divorce, the affirmation became even stronger. And it was so hard after that, as far as like being in the house and like navigating the relationship after that. But everything else was just lining up. Like
even
constantly.
The job.
And,
Yeah. Everything was supporting it.
Mm-hmm.
Helping you let go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how has your relationship with your sons and becoming a mother shaped your relationship to love?
No, man.
That's not an easy question, is it?
No. That's not an easy question. I think, well, first and foremost, like, I have realized how being in a toxic relationship where you're not happy and you're not being fueled and fed, like it really did hold me back from being such a better mom. And I think I always showed them ways of loving them. And obviously I used to have a lot more time with them too. And that's the other thing. It's like, now that I don't necessarily have as much time with them, I think showing them love
is so much more important.
It's so much more important.
Yeah.
And I also sometimes have to get really creative with ways that I show them love, or like have to change it up a little bit. And like, you know, and I obviously having two boys that are, you know, so young, they're not, I mean, my younger one is pretty lovey-dovey, but my older one is not so lovey-dovey. And he's very like, he's in this like cool stage right now. So it's, you know, he'll say, "I love you, Mom," when he goes to school. But it's, I've just learned that it's like, you know, there are so many other ways to show love other than actually saying it. And I think
it's a commitment.
Yeah. And I'm really hoping that through all this, that the boys eventually will see,
of course,
that we make hard decisions because we love people and because we want to love ourselves. And, you know, I know there's probably a lot of confusion and they still have questions, and they've been rock stars through it all. And it's, but I think showing, like, I mean, you hear this all the time, like, you can't fully love someone else or show someone else love if you're not showing yourself love first. And I really think that was my step in being able to love people more, is choosing myself first. And it's the oxygen mask, you know?
Yep.
You got to do that first for yourself before you're able to love other people.
Yep.
And, yeah, so I just hope that, like, my actions and how I treat them just, you know, more importantly, like, just encourages them to, like, put themselves first. And also, I never want to create, like, a conditional love environment, because that's definitely what I had growing up and what I still see.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't say I love you back, then, you know,
it means something.
And, or you're
wrong.
Or if you don't give me a hug, or if you're not, you know, then you don't love me. Like, I have a lot of, like, trauma around adults making kids feel bad for, or looking to children for their
Emotional needs to be met?
Yes. Emotional needs to be met and to feel loved. And it's like I never want to put that on my kids.
Yeah.
For them to feel like I need them to love me in a certain way. Like, I just think that there's so many other ways to show love. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. What are 3 things that you're currently proud of yourself for?
Leaving.
Okay.
Leaving. It's the hardest part. It is. I feel really good at my job right now.
Great.
Yeah. I feel really good at my job. And it was kind of it's been a surprise, you know, constantly it's a surprise of, I just never, if you would have like asked me like what, if you were to ever have like a full-time job, like what it would be, I would have never have said what I'm doing now. Maybe something along the lines of, but like not.
So you can thank that ex.
Yeah.
Because he picked the job for you.
See what I mean though? Like there's certain things it's just like.
That was a gift.
I can't totally regret all of it because.
Yeah. You got your job from that ex relationship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice and awkward sometimes now. But, and then the third one, I don't know. I think I've come a long ways in being a mom.
Yeah.
I think I really have come a long way, especially not being in our own space. I was really worried about that, but I think I have connected with my kids on another way that I would have not been able to in the past. And yeah, I'm just really proud of how I have chosen myself first so that I can, you know, take care of other people better and I can love other people better. Yeah.
You're so cute. What's something you would have changed about your last relationship? I mean your ex.
XX or ex?
Ex-husband.
Okay.
The one that you're not quite fully divorced from.
Got it. What's something that I would have
changed about your last relationship?
About the whole, okay.
Would you have left earlier?
Well, I obviously answered that very fast, but like, yes, I think I would have left sooner before I let myself be too far gone out of it, you know, like, and that's hard to say. That's hard to say.
I know.
It's
because it's already done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's who you are.
And along with that.
And where you are.
Yeah. Along with that, I would have advocated for myself more.
Okay. That's honest.
Yeah. I tried many times and I, you know, said, I'm going to stand up for myself and I'm going to do this. And then I would always get knocked down. And, yeah. I would have advocated harder and not have been so afraid of what people would think about me.
Aw.
Yeah.
What are 3 things that you're currently working on?
It's funny because I just talked about how good I am at communicating, but
you're working on communication?
I am in a new relationship, you know, like I'm trying, it's new. It's still, and like I said earlier, like we're figuring each other out. And you want to be a
better version of yourself.
Yep. And I'm realizing that I'm a little programmed still and a little traumatized and a little fearful.
We all are.
And so I'm learning to try to break through those fears and communicate better and also communicate in a way, you know, meeting him at where he needs to be met and like listening to what he needs and then communicating what I need more because now I'm finally in a relationship where that's open and on the table. So I'm learning to actually utilize that.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing how easy it still is to shove it, even when you've been asking for that for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you finally get the chance to do it and you're just like so programmed to not do it. And it's so hard. So I'm learning to actually utilize that and enjoy that while I have that. Yeah. Was there 3 things I'm supposed to say? I'm working on 3 things. Yeah. So communication, and communication.
Yeah,
all of it.
You're doing great.
Thanks.
You don't have to come up with 3.
I mean,
that was pretty great all on its own.
Okay. We'll just finish while I'm ahead then.
Okay, perfect. How do you incorporate more love in your life?
I think maybe this is too broad, but I think it comes down to like saying the things that you really want to say.
Being authentic.
Yeah. I think saying the things that you really want to say. And I think I've been so afraid of, it's so silly too to think about it, but it's like, I'm so afraid to like show how much I value someone and say exactly what I value about them or give them affirmation or, just telling people that you love them when you love them. I think that automatically just creates more love for me when I do that. And I don't know. I think I've just always been held back by the idea that like I'll scare someone away if I tell them how I feel about them, or I will come off as weak, or I will be rejected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it won't be reciprocated because that was like a huge truth for me. So I'm trying to learn how to just give people love more. And I also, you know my history with like my mom, and not really, it wasn't always super clear to me like how she felt about me, and it still is not clear. I mean, I don't know the last time that my mom and I said I love you to each other, you know? Like that's not like something that's very openly expressed.
Right.
And so yeah, I think just learning to tell people how you feel about them and giving that out without the expectation that you might get it back, but just, I guess it's like, treating it without a condition. Like if I feel a certain way about someone, or if I want to tell, even like in my friendships, like if I want to tell people how much I admire them and I value them and love them, I'm learning to just say that without the expectation that I'll get the same thing in return. But it's because I really want them to know that. And I think overall that helps you just feel more, I don't know, love in your life when you give it out too sometimes.
For sure.
I mean, you have to get it back in other ways also, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's you mentioned this before. You can't love other people until you begin to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't show other people how to love you if you don't know how to love yourself. So if you don't have love for yourself, then it's very hard for other people to love you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, I've really tapped into like love languages a lot.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about what mine are.
Yeah.
Like I didn't realize this. Jake called this out a few times, but I did not realize that acts of service is like
your thing.
The thing that I love to give. I think too, I like to receive that also, but like that is how I really communicate.
And express.
Yeah. Like love. I'll just start cleaning his house and he's just like, what are you doing? I'm like, I just want to do this for you.
Yes.
And, I'm like, let me do this for you. Like, I really want to do this.
Yeah. It makes me feel good.
Yeah. Or like, he'll be grocery shopping and he'll be like, send me your grocery list. Like, I want to pick up your groceries for the week. And like, I don't realize like how much that feels like so great to like, yeah, just like to accept and to acknowledge those types of love languages and ways of showing love that like mean so much because everyone's are different. But to really be asked what you want and like to
have somebody fulfill it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. The actual fulfillment is like the key.
Yes, it truly is.
Not just all talk.
Allowing yourself to receive it from somebody.
Yeah.
Or to ask for something more in a relationship or the relationship around you so that you can get what it is that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's essentially why you left your ex-husband is because you asked for more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
I feel like that's a good place to stop. What do you think?
I think we covered a lot.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh my gosh,
all of it.
thank you so much for having me.
You're
This
welcome.
Beautiful space.
You're welcome.
It was good. I feel like this is just a normal conversation for us, but it's good to put mics in.
It is. And I'm glad, for anyone who's listening or watching, I hope that they have received some insight into where they are too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing with me.
Of course.